What's up, Guardians, and welcome back, Hunters. I'm Profane, thanks for checking out the video. In the most recent update, which introduced the new Revenant episode, there were several exotics that were updated, with new perks and new abilities, to make them more viable options within the current sandbox. And today we're going to be checking out a new build that features one of those exotics, the Raiju's Harness. This exotic saw a complete revamp of its Mobius Conduit intrinsic trait, and that's because the Blight Ranger took on many of its old benefits. This new and improved Raiju's Harness gives you a build that prioritizes ability spamming, as it provides bonus super energy whenever defeating jolted enemies, but only when using Gathering Storm, which means we'll need to use this exotic on this standard Arcstrider subclass. This bonus energy equates out to be about 2% extra energy on each jolted enemy that you defeat, so the more enemies that you can apply Jolt to, the quicker you'll recharge that super. With a dense population of enemies, you could have Gathering Storm back in less than 30 seconds, allowing you to use this super much more often, and not just when in damage phases, but as you're clearing out big groups of enemies. Another new benefit to Raiju's Harness is that when you cast your Gathering Storm, a huge surge of lightning will strike all nearby enemies, causing all of those enemies to become jolted. It's also going to cause you and nearby allies to become amplified. The surge of lightning generates from us, and it extends out to about 7 meters, so you could aim Gathering Storm at a further away target, and still be able to apply a ton of damage to anything that's right on top of you, or you could focus all of that damage on an up-close enemy. Enemies who are defeated by the storm or the lightning surge itself will contribute to the bonus super energy that Raiju's Harness provides, which is going to cut down on that recharge time substantially, especially when we're taking on heavy waves of enemies. One of the greatest benefits of running this exotic is that it gives you improved crowd control with a focus on area denial, as you'll be able to utilize both the up-close damage and the Gathering Storm itself to be able to lock down targets at multiple positions. In a recent damage test against the Grasp of Avarice Ogre boss, the standard Gathering Storm puts up just over 400,000 points of damage. And with the Star Eater scale, it'll put up about 700,000 points of damage, but only when it's at its maximum charge. So where does the Raiju's fit in? Well, it puts up just over 500,000 points of damage, so not nearly as much as Star Eaters, but it is designed to be used against groups of enemies, not just one target. So what's the best way to build into the Raiju's Harness and maximize on the super and ability uptime? To answer that, we start with our choice in weaponry. Since jolting enemies grants bonus super energy, it's imperative that we utilize weapons that come with jolting feedback, or Voltshot. Some of the go-to weapons that I've ran with this build have been the Ikilos SMG, the Indebted Kindness Rocket Sidearm, the Tarnished Metal Scout Rifle, and the Hullabaloo and Bittersweet Grenade Launchers. There's also a number of exotic weapons that would create a lot of nice synergy with Raiju's Harness. The Trinity Ghoul, the Risk Runner, Cloud Strike, or Thunderlord would all be amazing choices to use. Because of the new artifact mods like Concussive Reload and Kinetic Impact, we've seen a lot of improved performance out of the Anarchy, which gives us even more advantages when it comes to area denial, which will come in handy in activities like Onslaught. Since Raiju's Harness will provide super energy as we jolt enemies, we could double down on that bonus energy by using the Bad Juju, which grants bonus super energy as we defeat enemies with this pulse rifle. Because of how we have this build set up, we're already fully equipped to spread tons of jolt, so we could afford to use a non-arc primary, especially if it helps us get our super back faster. We mentioned 2 artifact mods already, but there are a few others that we'll be able to benefit from. Retinal Burn will consume armor charges to create blinding explosions as we land consecutive precision hits with any arc weapon. Blinding enemies will temporarily take them out of combat, and it's going to stun unstoppable champions, so this will really improve our power to lock down enemies. We've also got Debilitating Wave, and this is going to cause our finishers to create a wave of arc energy that blinds any nearby enemy. Those waves are going to extend out to about the same distance as a wave-frame grenade launcher, so if you could get the right angle on a finisher, you could hit a lot of enemies all at once, causing them all to become blinded. And then we have Trace Evidence, which is going to give us improved uptime to our melee, grenade, and class ability energies. As we defeat jolted or blinded enemies, we will create ionic traces. We've already got ionic traces getting produced with this build, so this will add a ton of extra ability energy, which in turn is going to help us recharge our supers even faster. With that said, let's go ahead and take a look into this Arcstrider subclass and what we've got going on under the hood. We are using the combination of Lethal Current and Flow State for our aspects, with Combination Blow as our melee option. Together, these will provide us with a means of jolting and blinding enemies. They'll provide us with health regeneration and bonus melee damage, and bonus class ability energy, which will give us some really smooth gameplay performance. I do find that this build has a hard time keeping up with more difficult content, because our only source of health regeneration is through our melee, and that can put us into unsavory situations. But if it's a legendary Lost Sector, Nightfall, or even Onslaught, even when at 20 or more levels under, this exotic is going to go hard. It's also worth noting that I find this to be a much stronger build when running content solo, since you don't have to worry about teammates taking your kills. When it comes to our choice in fragments, we are using Spark of Shock, which will give our grenades the ability to jolt enemies, which means we're going to be able to jolt enemies with each of our abilities, and most of our weapons. We've got Spark of Protection to grant us increased damage resistance when we are surrounded by enemies. And to increase our melee damage even further, we are using Spark of Feedback. So whenever enemies hit us with their melee, we'll gain a 75% increase in ours. The last fragment that we've got equipped is Spark of Ions, which will generate those ionic traces that we spoke about earlier. There is a 7-second cooldown on this benefit, but its timer is different than the one provided by Trace Evidence, which means we're going to be able to create a lot of extra energy for ourselves. With Class Tree, Artifact, and Weapons addressed, the only thing left to talk about is our armor mods. We are using several that are going to help us regenerate our Gathering Storm. We've got Heavy-Handed, Firepower, Reaper, and Helmet Siphon mods, creating plenty of orbs, so that we'll be able to build up our super energy even faster. We've also got Hands-On and Ashes to Assets, which will grant bonus super energy whenever we defeat enemies with our grenades and our melees. With Orbs of Power triggering armor charges, we've elected to use Weapon Surge mods. With one Weapon Surge active, we'll gain a 10% increase in damage, but with 2 active, we'll gain a 17% increase. I would advise to limit yourself to just 2 Surge mods, so that you can still use a Recuperation mod, which is going to generate bonus health whenever collecting those orbs. With all the bonus energy getting generated through our Arcstrider abilities, our armor, and Raiju's harness, we'll be littering the battlefield with a constant barrage of lightning, making this an incredibly powerful ad clear build for any hunter to use in Revenant. And with that said, that brings us to an end of today's build video, featuring the Raiju's harness. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, you definitely need to do so. If you have already checked it out, then be sure to let us know what your thoughts were down in the comments below. If you need help putting together this build, then be sure to check out my Mobalytics link that's down in the description, where you'll be able to find this and a ton of other great PvE builds. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.